Well, hello everyone. I thought I was finished, but modular, it's an illness, man. It's an illness. And I had to mess with it and change it some more. I took out the Sound Machine's light plane for a couple of reasons. First off, just having a touchpad controller just turned out not to be as awesome as I thought it would be. I thought it would be easier than reaching up and grabbing a knob, but I never liked much the results I was getting, and part of that may have been because there were digital artifacts. I first noticed it in the Z parameter, the one where you smush your finger down onto the pad, but the X and Y, I mean the actual tracking across the pad, the more I played with it, the more I noticed digital artifacts, little steps in the voltage, and this just bugged me. It was unacceptable. And there are ways to smooth that out. You have to use a glide processor to smooth out the CV, but I didn't want to have to dedicate other very crucial, useful modules to doing that. So the light plane was out. I also got rid of, I had an Everton Technology CLX dual clock, which it was just redundant. At this point I have like 4 clock sources, so the CLX was not needed. I got rid of a 2 HP switch, which I think I only used twice. It was a little difficult to incorporate into a patch because you had to control the volume of the 4 inputs externally. Otherwise, you'd have one thing that was louder and would pop out when you selected it. And Mook Slicer made that module sort of redundant because this can do voltage controlled switching, and you use the faders to control the volume for each switch. So problem solved. I moved the Mook Slicer from there and put it over here because over there I was just never using it, and it's like, why am I not using it? It's such a powerful module. I put it up here so it would be easier to see, easier to reach, and maybe I'll use it more. Anyway, that space, I moved the octal poly VCA to be closer to these 4 slopes, and part of the purpose of getting this was to control this. So I moved it over here. I was hardly using it over there. I moved the LXD and put it over here because for this is going to be the traveling case. The stuff that I really use the most ought to be over here. Let me see. What did I get? Well, I got this vintage Synthlabs AWM3 analog wave folding mixer, and I'll get into that in a minute. And I also got this raunchy little thing. It's the Animodules Triple XOR. Because XOR, I've discovered, was the most useful logic gate for doing that sort of beat combining that I had been doing. And this was the most economical and space-saving way to get 3 XOR gates. And it also has an interesting analog XOR, which supposedly input A passes through to the analog output, but when input B is high, it gets inverted. I think it does more than that to the signal, but we'll hear it momentarily. Right now I have like a pretty mind-bending patch going on that I thought of in the middle of the night using Plaits speech mode. And the way speech mode works, if you are not triggering, if you trigger it, then it says a word. If you don't trigger it, then the morph knob will scan through the library of speech data. And so I thought if you used a really short rising slope and attenuated it down to where it would only utter a single syllable, and then you mix that with a random voltage to randomize the point in the library that it plays from, then you could get it to spit out random gibberish. And so that's what this is doing. I have Bifeco Rampage. Side A is generating the tiny little slope to speak the syllable. Side B is running on a loop, and one of its gates is triggering side A, and side A is clocking the top of the 4R and generating a voltage that modulates the speed of the loop on side B, so we get variable speed. And I'm also using Rampage to control the volume, and one of the randoms to control the pitch, and it's this sort of self-modulating jibber jabber. A robot lady talking to somebody on her cell phone, that's what this makes me think of. I'm also using a couple of those extra gates from the Rampage to fire off hat and tea cake. And then the same voltage that's controlling the pitch of Plaits, I'm also sending to Tromso over here, but it is scaled differently. And Tromso is going through channel 1 of the new wavefold mixer. Let me solo that so we can hear it. And then, that buzzy sound, like an annoying insect, that is the auxiliary output of Plaits, which it follows the same pitch, but it doesn't say the words. And that's going through the top of the triple XOR, and B input is one of these gates out of the divide and conquer. And if I turn that down, there's no wavefolding being done to that. The buzzing effect is entirely the triple X. Now this, if I turn up the raw, you can hear that constant bending sound is the raw wave out of Tromso. And I'm using 2 envelopes to sort of gate the positive and the negative wavefolds separately, triggering it from divide and conquer. And it's working almost like it's kind of like a VCA, but wavefolding adds harmonics, so it's like the opposite of a low-pass gate. It sounds kind of clinched up, but it's interesting. And then there's that. We'll dial this back in, and then there's everything together. Well, there you go. Some new gear and an interesting idea. Hope you found it entertaining. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys next time.